materials in hopes to stop bad people. Yeah, that sounds like a brain twister. Yes, the FBI actually ran a website known as Playpen for a brief period of time where they distributed illegal materials, but ultimately did stop a lot of bad people. Now, in order to break the law, in order to preserve the law, protect people under the law, sometimes you kind of have to teeter on the line of breaking it. Now, on my channel, I've always talked about computer safety, protecting your information online, and keeping safe. And one of the reasons why I talk about that is it's not just criminals you have to worry about. Sometimes it's the law enforcement agents that are hired to protect me, you, and everyone else. In this case, the FBI is an organization that not only gets hacked from time to time, in regard, we're looking into you, but they're an organization that definitely likes to spy and mass surveil on the people around us. And they've been doing this for decades, over 2 decades, ladies and gentlemen. Now, to understand all of this, you have to basically realize that the FBI is the chief surveillance operator in the country. You probably heard of the NSA, and that's fine and dandy, but the history the FBI has in tracking its citizens and being part of mass domestic surveillance programs is of key interest to me. So to understand, privacy gives us the individuality we want, but also true freedom. Living in a society where the government can spy on you at any given moment is not a free, open society. And if you're comfortable with giving up your information and giving up your privacy, and you might say, I've got nothing to hide, that's not a free world that you're living in. The government should only be allowed to look as far as they reasonably have to. When my doors are closed and I'm sitting on my computer in my own house, I'd rather not people peek in. Not because I have nothing to hide or, something to hide, but just because, God damn it, I like to have privacy within the 4 walls. But we live in a world where, unfortunately, I think it's a little bit too late for that. The history of the FBI spying on the average citizen isn't actually new. They've been doing it to many notable figures throughout history, and under numerous administrations, they've done egregious abuses of power. And we're going to go through some of them before we get to the actual Playpen situation. Now, under the Johnson administration back in the day, the FBI was asked to conduct name checks on anybody critical of him and to investigate the staff of his opponent, Barry Goldwater. Political intelligence was requested on anyone critical in the Senate, and intelligence reports on any political party were actually detailed in the 1964 Democratic Convention. So I've got some experts over here where they actually talk about this. In the 1960s, President Johnson asked the FBI to compare various senator statements on Vietnam with the Communist Party line and to conduct name checks on leading anti-war senators. So again, if the FBI was an organization designed to protect us, it shouldn't convention. So I've got some experts over here where they actually talk about this. In the 1960s, President Johnson asked the FBI to compare various senator statements on Vietnam with the Communist Party line and to conduct name checks on leading anti-war senators. Name checks on leading anti-war senators. Name checks on leading anti-war senators. So again, if the FBI was an organization designed to protect us, it shouldn't be there just to spy on us egregiously, even if it is under the guise of national security, which is so broadly applied, it's not even funny. And for the president at the time to ask the Federal Bureau to conduct name checks of their critics and members of the staff of their actual political opponents is downright insane. If this happens today, or had this happen today, the actual news by the media machine would be monstrous. So again, even cases where the Kennedy administration was authorizing wiretaps on Martin Luther King, officials of the Nation of Islam, and of course, the Alabama Klan leader, and Malcolm X, very, very heavy political figures of their time. So of course, over here, Kennedy's approval of FBI requests for wiretaps on Dr. Martin Luther King, and several of the associates are discussed in greater detail, of course, in that committee's report. And of course, they talk about wiretaps on black separatist group leader Malcolm X, and the Alabama Klan leader. And of course, these are just some extraneous spying abuses. And it was found at one point that the FBI had 26,000 individuals' names, all cataloged on a list of persons to be rounded up in the event of a national emergency. Truly scary shit. Now, of course, what about people who are sending snail mail? Before the days of the email, the CIA and the FBI opened up around 130,000 first-class mails, and around 300,000 individuals were cataloged in a CIA computer system known as Chaos at the time. And if you want to read more about this is from the 1975 Church Committee Senate hearing that actually overlooked the mass abuse of surveillance by the FBI, the NSA, and the CIA. And you may have never heard of other organizations in the government, such as the Information Awareness Office, which is a branch of DARPA that focuses on tracking terrorism and other threats to national security. Anytime I hear these buzzwords like national security, I can only picture a CIA agent getting excited about breaking, just taking a mile when you give them an inch of surveillance allowance, all right, a little bit of tolerance. Now, according to the New York Times, which actually showcased this in November 9, 2002 in a report, they showcased that the Pentagon was constructing a computer system that could create a vast electronic dragnet, where they could search for personal information and hunt for terrorists around the globe. So, of course, this sounds kind of like sci-fi to you, and if you've seen it in movies where people just throw names on a map, it's kind of the simplified way of what this system is. The ability to parse a shit ton of information and keep a surveillance checklist on a lot of, bad actors. Now, you might be wondering, maybe this is cool from an idea of national security, but again, we're breaking the fine lines of what is legal and what is basically teetering on breaking the law. But of course, after all those abuses were uncovered by the Church Committee, the FBI did not stop. No. One of their big programs was Carnivore. And for those of you who don't know what Carnivore is, it's also known as Omnivore, and the idea was to monitor emails and any electronic communication that they could capture. The way that it worked was the FBI had a Windows-based system loaded with packet sniffing tools. See, data packets flow all around the internet, and the FBI wanted to sniff those packets for the information they contain. They would install this system at the ISP level, okay? Meaning that when you touch the internet, you probably have an internet service provider like AT&T, like Verizon, like Rogers, like Bell, whatever in your country. They had their packet sniffer at the ISP's tower. Now again, a packet sniffer at the ISP level is about as goddamn invasive as you're going to get, because ISPs communicate with other ISPs, okay? It's kind of like how the internet works, okay? It's like the big router world. After your internet, all these ISPs talk to one another. When you have the FBI sitting at ISPs at their level, it doesn't matter. They can sniff on everybody who's communicating to that big ISP and various other locations they're connected to. That's how invasive this gets. They don't need to hack the computer. computer, they just have they literally have a sniffer sitting right at the big router everyone connects to. Now, to explain how ISPs can become so invasive, the idea is that every time like you connect to an ISP, you and hundreds of thousands of people are connecting to an ISP. ISPs run the internet. They're basically routers that talk to other routers, big routers talking to other big routers. So when you have a sniffer at the ISP level, you don't even need to hack the person. ISPs store websites you go to, what you look at on the internet, what you interact with, where you send emails to if you're using clients on your desktop, what you download, and what you stream. And let's say that you own a website and you host it locally, they can see who visits your website as well. Now, when it came to the Carnivore program, the FBI was looking for terrorist activity, foreign espionage, such as state surveillance, child exploitation, and fraud activity. Look, I'm not saying that these tools did not have good intentions. They did. It's just that when you're so extra legal with this kind of shit, you're getting into the point where breaking privacy is first and foremost like what the FBI is doing, okay? It's definitely an ethical issue. You can do a lot of good, you just don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Now, there were a lot of issues with Carnivore. For instance, privacy and the violation of that Privacy Act of 1986, where basically the way that this tool worked, packet sniffing, would basically violate the ECPA, and unless you had like really specific court orders, using this tool was basically a legal nightmare. The other issue was checking data outside the United States. Because this was sitting at every ISP, it wasn't really sitting at the ones from other countries. There was also an issue where conspiracies arose that because of this tool, you actually couldn't say words like bomb, assassination, or nuclear over the internet, because if you did, you might actually end up getting tracked, and at some point an agent was going to visit your house. And after all the bad press and all the legal issues, you know, they kind of threw the system to the wayside. What am I fucking saying? They just evolved it. They built other tools at the time, such as Packeteer, which could rebuild packets into websites or web pages and more elaborate messages. And then, of course, also had Cool Miner, which, not a crypto miner, and while no official documentation exists, according to leaked information, could be used to analyze data within filtered messages. So now, want to know about something even wilder? The AT&T wiretapping rooms almost feel like making a Wendigoon style, like a rabbit hole video, a pyramid video, an iceberg video. But no, the Patriot Act, for those of you who remember, basically led into what AT&T started to refer to as Room 641A, which, for those of you who don't know, this was located right in San Francisco, where NERIS provided the equipment to intercept and analyze internet communications. The only reason we know about this is from a whistleblower known as Mark Klein, who revealed in a 2006 class action lawsuit that such a program existed, and it wasn't just this one room in San Francisco, but AT&T allegedly had so many different Room 641s all across Seattle, Los Angeles, San Diego, numerous other parts of the country. And because this tap, according to Klein, was allegedly tapping into other internet backbones, they could get data, traffic from various domestic and internet providers as well. It's like an insane power vacuum for the internet traffic that just goes around every day. It's spying on a scale that nobody has ever seen before. So what happened to a company like NERIS? Well, they ended up getting bought out by Symantec, where Symantec bought 65 of their engineers, data scientists, and their various technologies. And of course, this spying didn't end here, because it evolved into something known as CPOV. So CPOV, which is basically the Computer and Internet Protocol Address Verifier, was a tool that the FBI developed, and they've been using it allegedly since 2001. So this tool can collect information on a target, such as their IP address, their media access control address, the MAC address that everyone blurs out in their videos. Yeah, they capture that. Browser environment variable, so fingerprinting you. Open communication ports, a list of every single program you've got running, your operating system type, version, serial number, what browser you use, and what version, your language, the URL that the target computer was previously connected to, registered name on your system, the company name on your system, who's logged in, and various other information that would basically create a bigger profile on the individual. And we found out about this, the world found out how bad CPAV was because of a bomb threat at a US high school. So of course, the way CPAV works is it's installed via a browser vulnerability, and then it gains persistence, meaning that once you get it, or once you get the clap, it sticks around, okay? It's like an STD, a bad one. But what comes next is by far the most controversial and unheard of piece of surveillance, and one that is the crux of this video. Now, NIT, also known as Network Investigative Technique, NIT, is something the FBI has been using, and basically codenamed, since 2002. So it's known as a drive-by download, and while it sounds pretty cool and all, it's a fancy way of saying a program that is downloaded without fully understanding the consequences. It's like an unwanted browser extension, right? You've heard of those. I know I have. Guard.io has as well, and they're there to protect you. The reason this is so controversial is because it could potentially cause you or anybody to have FBI malware on their system, even if they're unintended targets. By hijacking a high-traffic website and subverting the users to download malware, it could possibly lead to, again, unintended targets being hacked and not realizing. It's like dropping a fucking spy bomb on the internet in a way. So the other issue that comes out of this is jurisdiction. So you understand the FBI and global law enforcement have actually hacked thousands of suspected child porn producers through a string on a notorious dark web website known as Playpen. And this is where we're going to look into Playpen, but before we jump into it, this entire operation that we're discussing is actually a blueprint for similar operations that have started to happen all over the dark web and the internet as a whole. See, the key point here is the FBI has actually, in a way, violated the law in trying to protect minors. Now, possibly being a vendor for illegal goods in the process of stopping it. It's like, you know those Vice Squad officers that, basically have a briefcase of cocaine and they're supposed to sell it to a criminal in order to kind of like, trap them in or get them committing a crime so they can put the cuffs on them. It's kind of like that, except they've actually started selling the drugs. And in some cases, selling the drugs for like a month until they can capture all the drug dealers and stamp them off. However, in the process of it, they've actually distributed an illegal substance and God knows caused some actual harm in the process. Now, one of the problems of NIT was actually something known as Rule 41 of the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure. Now, this rule specifies more towards executing things like search warrants in regards to computer hacks, intrusions, and all these types of activities. According to these rules, magistrate judges can hand out warrants for searches and possible seizures only within the specific judicial districts where the criminal activities are occurring at the time. And it's generally understood that if you're a judge, you have to have a certainty of a location to where the target should be searched, especially in this digital era we live in. According to the law, if you don't know where the computer you're hacking is, you cannot legally hack that computer. You should have an address or an idea of where the system is, like maybe having a warrant on a home address or an actual IP. See, the reality here is, imagine if you're a judge in California, right? And you cannot authorize a search and seizure warrant on a computer that's, say, located in the state of Florida. Two different locations. This is basically likened to having a bad warrant, and one that could potentially kill an investigation. And when we talk about stopping, criminals like, child molesters and stuff, any investigation that, they can take advantage of, any form of, blown Fourth Amendment is just bad for the rest of us, okay? Nobody wants to let these sickos get away with their crime. So this takes us to Operation Pacifier, which was an attack on that dark web marketplace known as Playpen. So Playpen basically distributed illegal child images and operated primarily under the Tor network. The website was launched August of 2014, and in the last 6 months, the site owner, Stephen Chase, was captured by the FBI. Now, Playpen's creator was sentenced to 30 years, which, in my opinion, is still too damn short. So Operation Pacifier basically led to a 58-year-old Stephen Chase who operated out of Naples, Florida, who created the Playpen website, sadly, in August of 2014, and had basically exchanged a lot of illegal images and facilitated the exchange of these kind of materials. Now, again, I like the dark web, I like covering it, but even amongst all the fun, goofy stuff, unfortunately, a lot of marketplaces dabble in distributing illegal child materials, drugs, and whatnot. And the FBI and many law enforcement agencies work around the clock to try and stop that shit. Now, the website at its peak had tens of thousands of postings of underage victims, and it was believed that it had about 150,000 users worldwide browsing the forum and trading all of those images. So because of the anonymity in the Tor relay, the FBI had to get really lucky, and they did, eventually, in December 2014, when Playpen's unique IP address was leaked, revealing its location to be in the United States by a foreign police agency investigating at the time. So what happened next was the FBI seized the website, served warrants for its IPs and email addresses. They started tracing the money, and eventually found the site owner, ran him. And beyond the site owner, 2 other site administrators were also arrested, known as Michael Fleckiger of Indiana and David Browning of Kentucky, both of which were given 20-year sentences. Again, too light for their crimes. And this was actually the beginning, because what happens next is a gross violation, an outrageous act by the FBI, one that many would consider illegal. So the FBI wanted to go after the thousands of users who were on this website.